Let's start off with defining it. Impulsivity is the tendency to kind of act without thinking, or I should say without sufficient thought to the future impact of that, to the consequences to ourselves or to other people. So it's a big deal. And impulsive behavior is frequently a numbing out to procrastination. A lot of times we've talked about procrastination. Procrastination is typically mood repair. And if we're not feeling good about what we're doing, we're more likely to do something impulsively, like impulsive shopping, impulsive eating, those kind of things, because they numb ourselves out to the thing that we're trying not to stress about, rather than getting it done in some cases. So yeah, it's closely related to procrastination in a lot of cases. Some examples, I guess, would be, people with ADHD would frequently often say things that we kind of wish we could roll back, right? Once it's out there, we've blurted something out. Oftentimes it shows up in shopping. We buy things we didn't plan on. Maybe we run across the street without taking sufficient time to figure out if that's a safe thing to do at that moment. It is more prevalent in children and teenagers, and that's because their frontal lobes aren't developed, and that's the executive function. And with ADHD, that is the core aspect of ADHD, is that it is our core executive functions that are impacted. All of them, actually. It's a little bit like a graphic equalizer. For some people, certain aspects are more impacted than others, but that is what ADHD is all about. So in adults, ADHD is often a factor in executive function capabilities, and it translates to seemingly impulsive decisions and things. Personally, I have a little bit of an issue with the definitions, because I don't think it's truly impulsive. The things that I see us do, frequently there's a cascade of events that came up before that weakened us, so to speak, and then we take that action. Someone that does impulsive shopping, they might have had a poor day and they don't feel good about themselves, and this is a way, like a shot in the arm, they can feel better for a few moments by buying something or eating something. So broadly defined, it's taking actions without foresight that are poorly conceived or prematurely expressed, sometimes unnecessarily risky, and oftentimes inappropriate to the situation that we're in. And clearly, especially in relationships and work environments, it can have a significant detrimental effect. It is found frequently in ADHD. It's also found frequently in bipolar disorder and a couple other things. And bipolar 2, by the way, is comorbid with ADHD decently often. People that take impulsive actions kind of make what at least looks like hasty decisions. They get into arguments, they engage in risky behaviors. One of the biggest things that I think, deepest things, it undermines our relationships oftentimes, our sense of well-being, our impulsive behaviors that lead us into these things, sometimes lead us into, what Ranify is all about, lead us into major financial difficulties. Continually taking poorly thought out actions, kind of frying pan into the fire kind of thing, without thinking things through. And they can also lead to legal harm. They can get us in trouble legally with our money or with a variety of other things. I buy into the science of ADHD 100%. Some of the things I'm going to say may seem counterintuitive to that, but ADHD is clearly a manifestation of executive function deficits compared to the general population. It's largely a genetic issue, can be trauma-induced, there's no doubt about that, but for most of us, it's genetic. And I think there's a big overlap with trauma, because umbrellas don't cause the rain, right? There's a correlation between it. People who have ADHD and it isn't remediated or treated when they're younger, they go through a lot of really rough things, and it can't help but cause some traumas in many cases. So let's look at these ADHD issues from a different perspective for a moment, and then I'm going to be asking you guys some questions. Hopefully you downloaded that worksheet. Mindset is absolutely crucial. You can't change your genetics. You can't change the fact that you have ADHD. ADHD is like that. It's a neurological brain function difference. Not going to change. The symptoms will manifest differently depending on what you're facing in life. But the ADHD itself, it's not like a broken arm where you have it and it'll get fixed and it'll be over with. it's a lifelong condition, which can be remediated for sure. So I believe mindset is crucially important, given that you can't change some of these other things. Henry Ford once said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're going to be right either way. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I want to talk just really super quick about impulsivity. I don't think it's all bad. I really don't. I think it's, and all the other symptoms of ADHD too, they're there evolutionarily, in my opinion, and they serve a purpose of some sort. So I don't think it's all negative. I think if we don't rein in the negative side of ADHD, absolutely, it's a huge problem. But some of these things, a lot of these are double-edged swords. What's really good could be really bad, and vice versa, depending on what it is. So let's talk about impulsivity. Can clearly get us in trouble, but it can also lead to some really amazing things that that others might think are barely possible, and yet our tendency to leap can give us a tremendous advantage, tremendous additional risk factors as well, right? Out of the people that leap into a business, for example, some small percentage will be hyper successful. Most will be average, and some will actually end up failing. So I think it's no accident that 20 to 30%, somewhere in there, and I can't find the statistic I read a while back, but of the CEOs in this country, mostly smaller companies, have ADHD. It's a positive factor in it. So I think the key to me, and I always talk about this in our other classes, stability before growth. So I think this tendency to leap is great, but don't do it without some safety harness, without some plan for how to back out of that decision if it turns out to be wrong.